Welcome to Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is to uplift, inspire, and share stories and experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is hope, helping other people every day. And welcome, Miss Samantha Foster and Mr. Bruce from Ohio. Matter of fact, disappointing Ohio State lost yesterday to Michigan, but welcome. Hey, I sent out two quotes earlier this week, and from discussions talking to Sam, she said, this quote should be something we should use for Motivational Sunday, because I failed to ask someone to bring in the quote. So we're going to use this one today, brought to you by Dr. Seuss. I know certain people in this country is feeling a certain kind of way, but one of my favorite books is All the Places We Will Go by Dr. Seuss. So I'm going to say that, we need to keep our biases to ourselves regarding this, but I want you to think about this, and I'll tell you how this landed with me when it was originated or given to me. And I'll see what you guys think when I throw it back to you. So here it goes. When bad things happen, you have three choices. You can either let it define you, you can let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you. This was one of the favorite quotes by a young lady by the name of Jill Steinberg. She is a financial executive here in Philadelphia. I had a Zoom call with her for my podcast, Talking with Kevin and Son, regarding her foundation, Live Like Blaine. And this was one of the quotes that she said was her favorite quote. And coming from a mother that has lost a child, I don't think there can be a more devastating loss than someone you've given birth to. And before their 21st birthday, through cardiac arrest, they lose their life. Think about all of the things that are going on this planet right now. Some of it's happening in our own neighborhoods. You can't turn on the 6 o'clock news without looking at violence and devastation. There's nothing to be celebrated when it comes to how the media reports or how they kind of lean towards one way versus the other. But one thing that, we've had these conversations about life itself, we have chance and we have choices, and our actions support both of them. So when I look at this, I look back at my own life and understanding when I had no control over my life nor my environment, I had to deal with the hand that was played to me. But I lived every single day of my life from the time I was in the third grade, working to change my own environment. I did not let the shortcomings of the people that brought me into the world or the shortcomings of the people that I was surrounded by defined who I was or who I was going to be. But I migrated to those that were like-minded people that were going places I wanted to go. Sometimes it's part of human behavior to get stuck someplace. And sometimes we get stuck just for a moment. Sometimes we get stuck for a couple of days. Sometimes we get stuck for years. And sometimes we get stuck for our whole entire lives. And then there's others, like a Samantha Foster, like a Mr. Bruce Hill, like my partners at RMK Production, that look at those things as not as obstacles in their life, but challenges, hurdles to go over. It makes you stronger. It makes you smarter. It makes you look at the world with a different view, and it makes you more compassionate. So when I look at this, and if I said I had to pick one or two, I would pick two, because I do not allow things I have no control over to destroy me, because I am what I build every single day. And those things that would harm me provide me with the energy and the strength for me to persevere and overcome. And so with that said, I'm going to toss it back over to two people that are a lot more smarter and more intelligent, who I surround myself with. And I'm a Southern boy, since Miss Samantha Hill is here. So lady's always going to go first. Sam, when bad things happen, you can choose three things. You can let it define you, you can let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you, by Dr. Seuss. How would that land with you? How does that land with you?
Yeah, so I loved this quote, and I love being able to make those three choices. And when you originally put it out, I said number one and number three. And we want to make sure, no matter what the circumstances that we go into, that it strengthens us, strengthens our character. But how it defines us, we get to choose how it defines us. Our very experiences and the events and circumstances that happen in our life, we need to choose how we're going to come out of that. Are we going to come out of it in a negative way? Or are we going to come out of it in a positive way? But you cannot go through a circumstance or an event in your life, good or bad, without it defining you in some way. So we get to choose how it defines us. I always choose to come out of it a stronger person, absolutely. But how? Where does my strength end up being? Tenacity, maybe, right? That boldness, maybe a little bit more courage to go out and do what I need to do. There's strength in stability, there's strength in consistency. So it's, how do you apply that strength? Some people find strength in anger and destruction. So I really do go with number one, with of course with the also playing number three. I come out of it with a little bit more tenacity each and every time. I come out of it a little bit more different person, because guess what? I have more compassion, especially in traumatic events. You can hold space for other people who go through similar situations in your life. So I go with number one and number three.
All right.
Thank you.
Sam, thank you. And like I said, everything that happens in life happens for a reason. No matter if we want to own it or not, things do happen every single day, 24 hours, 365 days, no matter where you are on the planet. And everything that happens to you, you have a choice on how you react to it. Mm-hmm. And someone that is so freaking dynamic, if I can say that on a Sunday morning, Mr. Bruce Hill, he's out there changing the world, one conversation at a time. He's a fine example of what a man should be. He represents what a man should be of color. And he is the ideal of optimism. So, Brother Bruce, how does this land on you from Dr. Seuss?
One of my favorite children's books you mentioned is The Places You'll Go. And there's a part in there that says, as long as you have shoes on your feet and brains in your head. And so that his simple wisdom is how I try and teach, honestly. You can have some complex ideas, about emotional trauma and neuroplasticity we can cover with just these three topics. But it's so much more impactful to keep it simple. And I'm glad you chose Dr. Seuss quotes. I think I know quotes don't have to be grandiose or complex to be meaningful. And this one reminds me to answer a quote with a quote. I read a book. I say that phrase a lot. I read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Have y'all read that one?
No.
Really?
No, I will now. I'm going to write it down as we speak now.
Let's take some time to read it. It's actually pretty short, relatively speaking. And this gentleman had spent his several years in an internment camp as a Jewish, during the World War. What do they call those camps?
Concentration camps.
Yes, the concentration camps. And so it's a very, very interesting perspective, to hear someone that survived the story. And what I took away will answer this quote. He said the purest freedom and the purest exercise of freedom is man's ability to choose how he will respond to any situation. So I actually agree with Sam. It's actually number one. If you go through life, whatever experience, good or bad, and it doesn't change you, you're probably dead.
Wow. That was deep.
So what we have to be very careful is when we say define you, is to choose the definition. One of my favorite stories, I spent some time sleeping in my car. And I had never been so full of joy and gratitude because while it was inconvenient, and Kevin, one day we'll meet face to face. I'm not short, and it was uncomfortable. I was so full of gratitude because I had a car and I had a job, and I knew it was just temporary. I knew if I kept going, it wasn't going to be the rest of my life. And so I look back on that period of time very fondly, and I found people that were so supportive of me. And I found people that were very compassionate. And I decided the definition I would choose is to become more compassionate. And I absolutely love to give to folks that are unhoused. And one of my goals is to create opportunities for them so it doesn't become a permanent lifestyle, but just a temporary situation. So I think it's very important that each and every life happenstance becomes part of what defines us. And even more important, to choose to make you a better person. I think some of those situations can be difficult, and I don't choose number three because they can weaken you if you let them. There's some more challenging things that we can't avoid. Loss, those can be very debilitating, but they're an opportunity to be vulnerable and lean on the people you care about. And that definition, again, you can choose to be more empathetic to people who have had similar scenarios. So when bad things happen, I want you to let it define you in the most positive way.
Wow, that was deep. And to our listeners, the couple things that were said today: choice, what defines you, simplicity. I don't know how many years ago, Bruce and I share a bond with a man, the late John Lewis, that stood on a bridge. And there was an opposing force that had his own agenda, beat him to near death. And almost 3 centuries later, the two embraced because the one found the strength to understand his shortcomings, and he chose to acknowledge before John Lewis's death in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone else, some people stood in the back on the sideline and questioned, how can you embrace someone that almost took your life? And other people celebrated the fact of how strong he was in order to allow someone to change, no matter how many years have gone by and how much he had to live with. We have no idea how long we hold on to things and how many demons play in the back of our minds, or how heavy our hearts get because of choices and stances we have taken. But we also have to look at those who stood for more, that did for more, and ask yourself, what do they have that I don't have? We can choose to either have or have not. We can choose to let whatever has happened to us become who we are, and we become part of the problem again. We can choose to have our story defined by what we did or we didn't do. Or we can choose to be that example that allows another 10-year-old, another 15-year-old, an 18, a 30, or 40-year-old to make a decision to make this world a lot better. So there's no right or wrong in 1, 2, or 3.
I
But
agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Seuss will tell you all the places we will go. And I think the more places you go, the more exposure you have to those people that are there, the more conversations you sit and you listen and you embrace, the more times you look at someone that looks back at you, that their eyes are blue, green, brown, gray, or whatever the case may be, and you celebrate that you've been a witness to someone's greatness, and you move on with life, adding and planting seeds in fields where plants normally won't grow. So, any closing before we end another Sunday motivations with, or motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends?
Samantha?
Yeah, I would love to add on that, the number 3, about the strength, and then the number 2, what we would define as weakened. There are some circumstances, they are out of our control, and they can bring you absolutely to your knees. They're catastrophic. The strength that's in that is being willing to walk through that pain and that sorrow that we feel at those times and come out on the other end compassionate. That's how those, even in that, what we would consider a weakened state, is how we grow. If we don't fall, if we don't stumble, then how do we change? How do we make ourselves better? It's through a lot of times that pain and that sorrow and that stumbling and falling and making those mistakes in that weakened state to become stronger. We got to go through that. So you're right, Kevin. Number 1, 2, and 3 are all vitally important.
Okay. Bruce?
I think it's interesting we all agree on the choice that we have, what's in our control, even when the circumstances are out of control. I did make that observation as well.
All right. So my listeners, you sit there in your chair, your car seat, at your desk, wherever you may be. You could be standing on the rock, looking over absolutely nothing and taking in what life is all about. I got 3 things I want to leave with you. Live your life like it's the last day of your life. Laugh like it was how you made your living. And love like you were writing your own story. So I'd like to thank everyone that has come to this space and shared today. We meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like what you've heard and you want to share, go to our YouTube page at RMK Productions and Network and join our group or subscribe. And remember, education is not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think. And as my grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life where you can help someone else out, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends. And we're out. We're going to fade to black. Thank you.